Hey everybody, it's Monday. For a mindful message, this is my second time filming. These people are dicks. I'm just so sick of it. I've never been more disappointed in the human species. But I'm going to set that aside and talk about how to accept difference in a holistic way. How can we as people become better to one another and better to the world for being different? And there's a million reasons or ways you can be different. There's different sexual orientation, different cultures, different nationalities, different towns, different upbringings. Like, everybody has difference. Nobody is ever the same, even when they grow up in the same place. You could have two very different people. And I think what I want to talk about in this one mostly is this whole separation of religious practices and personal preference and belief. Because I did grow up in the Catholic Church. I grew up with very strict rules, and I grew up in the time where it was really difficult for people who were gay. They were doing horrible things. Remember that poor man from Texas? He was a gay man in Texas, and they strung him to the fence like cattle and left him to die. And nobody cared because he was gay. That's my era that I came up in. And everyone's like, oh, that's barbaric. It wasn't even 20 years ago. I mean, yeah, I guess that's half my age. Wait, I'm 40. So like 20 and some change years ago. It wasn't that long ago that people were just in this barbaric state of mind. And I'm concerned because I grew up in the Catholic Church, like I said. So all my friends in high school were gay. And I had to hide that from my parents. They had to hide themselves from their parents. They had to hide themselves from other classmates. The only time that they were allowed to be openly gay is if we were alone hanging out somewhere. It was the only freedom they had. So trust me when I tell you, they ran with that freedom. Like, drag shows was considered more of a theater. So if men were caught in a drag show, they could put it off as theatrics. So drag queens was initially where a lot of the transgender community began. And I had a first look coming up at their lifestyle and how horrific it really was. And the first surgeries that were coming out, these people were like butchering people and taking their money and not caring. So, and I also was alive through the whole AIDS movement with the AIDS quote, and like doctors wouldn't even touch people with AIDS. Like, we've come a long way, but at the same time we have not. I'm still not a gay person, and I surround myself with people who are, because they challenge me. They get my mind out of a sponge that the church tried to, out of a box and into more of a sponge state. Because the problem with organized religion is they teach you to hate just because somebody's different. And that never comes from anything that you want to believe in. That comes from man and their personal preference, and it's just projected times a million onto the world. Because if you look at history, Romans, all that, the gay lifestyle was significant in almost every single culture we've ever had. It's always been there, and it's always been attacked. Again, this is not the only thing that people are being tough on each other. There's also different political views, different ways of raising your children, different ways of living your life and what you should do with your money. All these things that divide people. If you hang out with that person, their habits are going to run off on you. They're a bad example. That is the worst thing you could ever say, because nobody is ever, within age. If your kid's a child, then yes, they can be peer pressured. But I'm saying as an adult, nobody is forced into things. because you don't have the decency to speak up and say, no, actually, I don't agree with that. You're being really mean to that person. I'm not going to stand here and mock and laugh while you humiliate someone because you think it's okay to do that. Nobody stands up to their own friends and their own peers in these situations when bullying does happen because of difference. Because one, they're scared of rejection from their own people, their own kind, their own belief system, which is another isolating fact of anything organized. We have lost the capacity to think for ourselves. Everybody is taking a pitchfork and running with it. Either you adamantly support it, or you're adamantly against it, or you're in the middle. I don't care either way. Either way, that's a divide 3 ways, because society is divided into 3 sections no matter what the situation is or the scenario is. For it, against it, don't care. And it's projected a million times onto everything we do, because we as people stopped asking ourselves, what are you okay with? What don't you agree with? What do you agree with? And if you do sit in those churches, why do you have to hate gay people? Why do you have to bash what they do? Why can't you just ignore it? Say hello, accept them for who they are, and go about your life? Or somebody with a political view different than yours, so they might go and vote their way, and you're gonna vote your way. But that is what the American tradition is. Everybody gets a vote, and they have the right to make up their own mind without being judged for that, without being isolated or objectified. Everybody has become the crucible. Everything is a witch trial for everybody in cliques. As human beings, since cavemen, we have formed cliques. And these cliques are the very destructive thing that is causing us to divide. You get a clique, you want to stay in the clique. One dominant person in that clique becomes the central mind for everybody. So I challenge you to not accept cliques with one dominant mind, to challenge the authority in your friends group when you don't agree. Because how do you know that other people in your friends group don't feel the same way and maybe don't have the courage to voice themselves? And when you find yourself saying things like, hey, that's really mean, or come on, that's uncalled for, you don't need to go there, just let them be, just forget about it, someone else will be like, yeah, or you might get crickets, and you realize that those people aren't for you, they're not about you, they don't serve your highest good, and they bring you down to a low vibrational place. It's okay to isolate people who are like that, because the more you are like that, the more toxic you become. You have to decide in yourself what you stand for, and you have to decide what you're okay with. But you are 100% responsible for your actions towards people who don't agree with you or live the way that you do. Your failure to accept that they don't agree and not need that acceptance, that's a shortcoming in yourself. Like, you should be able to stand firm on your own beliefs. And as people, we have become fearful, not fearless. Everybody's out here preaching about something and taking a stance and acting like they're fearless, when all I see and hear is the fear of not being accepted, fear of, if you do accept somebody unlike you, you're going to realize your organization or your way of life was wrong, and then you're going to have to face that. And people can't face the truth within themselves, let alone allow that to be projected on them by someone else. You have to come back to yourself. You have to come back to center and know your truth, and not be swayed or influenced by another, and to not belittle or influence another to, one, think like you, or stop believing what they do. That's manipulative. That's narcissistic. Step away from that. Raise your vibration. be a free mind. That's how you become Zen. I hope this was helpful. See you next Monday.